I came here to stand in solidarity, also to show that I haven't forgotten. And I didn't come here to actually give a speech. I was just asked a few moments ago. So I'm not coherent in what I have to say, but I'm firm in what I would like to talk about. We are here. When I look at the signs, I came as a happy child. Our Sikh psyche has been destroyed. We are bodies right here gathered to remember Sikh atrocities. To remember also the continued Indian state violence that is inflicted on minorities, Christians, Muslims, and unique exceptions towards Sikh bodies. We're here to also assert the importance of supporting human rights. What does that mean? It means the right to be human, the right to have your identity, the right not to have your subjectivity changed, and the right to write your history the way your ancestors told you about, and to resist the state in continuing to eclipse histories of Operation Blue Star, Operation Woodrose. I don't call it a 1984 massacre in November. I am comfortable to say that it was a Sikh genocide. And the continued human rights today for Sikhs is the torture that continues, the increase in death in custody. The statistics are very clear in the recent report by Amnesty International that I highlight and encourage you to look at. Commemoration is significant for many reasons. First of all, it is to be reminded of your location as a Sikh in the relationship to a nation. It is also important, today we don't have those images, but the images that generally have been up showed the terror that Sikhs have been confronted with, the aura. I cite Dr. Karen Dar, who's been a very strong advocate in keeping history alive, and what she has highlighted, that history is important because we need to retrace back the roots of what atrocities were, the cause of it. The root for the Sikh atrocities lies in identity. The struggle of identity goes back to the Mughals, to the British rule, and now the Indian nation state. What has only changed is the master. You are still the slaves. The master has changed, but the conditions have not. You know the history. The question for many Sikhs that I spoke to about at that time is about humiliation. Academic Joyce Pettigrew clearly stated that it was not just a random attack in the Golden Temple. It was to destroy a culture, to destroy a faith. And when you actually have the Indian Army and various bodies coming in and stealing historical archives, what that signifies is the stealing of history from the Sikh body. Another area that doesn't get talked enough about is the dehumanization when Sikh bodies were dead during Operation Blue Star and after. There weren't many eyewitness accounts to that because there were huge media blackouts, but some media reports showed of very few reporters that were alive that said that the Sikh bodies were transported in sewage trucks, hanging out, including that of a child. What does that tell you about a Sikh identity in India? This reminds me of the dogs that actually fed off of the human remains during November 1st and November 4th. They did not even want to spend enough money to cremate the bodies properly. That is absolute dehumanization. And as we move into 1984, in terms of human rights, why is it that India continues to use the term riot when there have been very clear definitions and eyewitness accounts that showed it was state orchestrated, and that there was also an erosion and eradication of various gurdwaras. But what's also important is it was the entire structure of the society that was against Sikhs. In the 1970s, media reporters were educated in not using certain language that would instigate certain communal violence. My question that still isn't answered, why during November '84 did they use and air publicly blood for blood? That's only there to instigate and to continue the dominant discourse that this is a communal violence between Hindus and Sikhs. This has to be eroded. This is part of the propaganda machinery. We know better what the intention was. It is to crush the Sikh defiance. And the Mughals and the Muslims in their history were always afraid of Sikhs because their connection to Gurbani made and continue to make their minds that of steel. When I was in Tilak Vihar, and what I see there is resistance of the widows, that we don't have enough at commemorative events. The Indian state wants to continue to keep them in a state of dependency. Why? Some of the key prosecutors that are important in prosecuting this human rights case have told me that every time they have prepared a witness to take stand against Tytler or Sajan Kumar, they actually retract. Why? They have been bribed. You are only going to take a bribery if you need the money. So what India has done is they've given them compensation, but they don't have their own jobs. The other way to kill the Sikh psyche is drugs. When I was there are some young kids that are addicted to drugs, and I asked what infrastructure is available for Sikh youth that are addicted to drugs, for the younger ones. You know what they told me? The younger brother sees how the older brother is dying. Is that an infrastructure to help Sikh youth? This is what many nations have done to actually control people. But we don't hear about it in the news. I just want to mention that it's really important that the big weapon of mass destruction for Sikhs today continues to be the media. These events are often labeled as pro-Khalistani events, political events. The fact remains, this is a historical narrative of fact. So I would suggest one thing, and that is that you never forget. Because one of the reasons why the state government of India wants to forget the 1984 Sikh genocide is because it will erode your connection with the Indian state. It will not make you realize who you are in relation to that state. And what you're going to be doing if you continue to hide this history is you are going to strengthen the Indian state's power to continue these atrocities. And I have to say, I don't have faith in the Indian nation today. In my studies in the last 10 years, but I'm finding the denial of this history is getting even more brutal and humiliating. So your weapon is Gurbani and continuing with that defiant subjectivity that is in every Sikh body. So let us remember those lives that have been martyred and the widows who don't have voices. And I can say in my lifetime I've seen 2 living deads, and both were Sikhs. We mustn't lose sight, and we must never domesticate the cause. If there was blood, show the blood. Because what happened is worse than our possible minds can imagine. Guru Nanak said, truth is something we advocate, but to live truth is something that is very difficult. So let us live the truth and not let anyone silence us. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.